You're listening to Paris Talks Marketing. My goal with this podcast is to dig deeper into digital marketing success than any other marketing podcast out there, to reveal the growth marketing strategies and tactics that are working today, empowering growth at amazing companies and organizations. Keep listening as I interview founders, CEOs, and marketing leaders from all around the world, primarily from companies in the tech and software as a service industries. Now, on with the episode. Hey everyone, today my guest is Arjun Pillai. Arjun is the founder and CEO of Insent.ai, and he's also a second-time founder. And Arjun moved to the US from India when he was 27 years old, and that was 4 years after founding his first company in India, which was bought by a company in Colorado, which then asked him to come over to the US. So, Arjun, welcome to the show.
Oh, yeah. Thanks a lot for having me, Paris. Great to have this conversation.
And so before we jump into Insent, I want to hear a little bit more about this very interesting journey that you've been on. So you were born and raised in India. Where in India are you from?
I come from the southwest coast of India. The state name is called Kerala. It is not a super well-known state. It's a very touristic, beautiful, they call it God's own country.
Okay.
It's a pretty nice state. And yeah, that's where I come from.
Great. So you founded your first company at the age of 24. Am I right?
23.
Oh, 23. Okay. What was that company?
Yeah. So that company had multiple products, because the first few products did not work out, obviously. We, along with three of my college mates, I started the company when I was 23 and something. And we built out a few products. None of them took off. It was all in B2B and SaaS kind of spaces, but none of them took off. The product that actually took off was a customer intelligence solution. So it would help a marketing person or a salesperson to know more about their existing customers or prospective customers based on limited starting data. So just an email and a company, first name, last name, and the company. We would help to do lead enrichment, prospecting, social media engagement, audience segmentation, all of that.
Got it. By the way, was that company called Profoundus?
Yes.
Okay. And then later, Full Contact acquired you guys, right? Yeah, cool. And then, so you must have stayed on with Full Contact for a little while, and then you were free, I suppose,
yes.
Right?
Yes. People call it prison time. It wasn't that bad for me, but
prison time.
Yeah, I mean that's what the founders call it, right? Like the vesting. Some call it sit and vest time. Some call it prison time. For a small percentage of the people, it turns out to be really good. In my experience, 75% of the people go through that sit and vest time, which is like, yeah, okay, it is an okay time. And then there is 20-25% people who are like, it was amazing. I learned a lot. I stayed with the company for another 2-3 years and whatnot.
And for you, it was a good experience, the sit and vest time.
It was a good experience for sure. But I was itching to get back. After struggling for a long time with this thought, I am not an employable person. I have battled that thought for a long time, saying that, no, that is not true. I am employable, but at some point in time, you just give up. And sometime in 2017, 2018 timeframe, I gave up and I recognized that I'm not an employable person as such in a company. Because, you have all these ideas and you have done a couple of companies and you need that influence when things don't really work the way and people take different decisions. You tend to get frustrated about it. I'm not proud of it. I'm not, it's just a trait in me, right? So
yeah.
Rather than being at a company for a long time, unless I would rather run other smaller things or if I'm running at a different company as an employee, I need to have a clear purview, a clear field where I can go and execute and make my mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Yeah. I think it's not uncommon for founders like you to later be acquired and become part of a larger organization to feel maybe the loss of authority and control that you had when it was your show.
Yeah.
And the ability to move fast. I think that's part of it too.
Yes.
I've experienced a little bit of that in my career where moving from my own agency into Google, I felt like as innovative and cool as that was, I was moving at a fraction of the speed. I mean, the speed
Right.
of decision making and just generally the pace of things because of the bureaucracy.
Exactly.
That's what frustrated me.
Yeah.
So I guess that in those later months, you probably were already starting to formulate the idea for Incent,
No,
or
so
when did that come around?
no, I came out of full contact with a more open mind. Startups has always been about learning for me, right? I want to learn new things. So when I came out of full contact, I just randomly started consulting. I've never done consulting in my life before, so I just wanted to consult. So I just went out and consulted for a lot of these data companies, marketing companies, and I did that for about 8 9 months and was making enough money, a good job, work 4 or 5 hours a day and make enough and more to live. But you have this entrepreneur bug. Founders are broken inside at some level. I'm sure you understand. We want to like go out there and try doing something again with a probability of 5% to win, but you still want to try. So I just, end of 2018, I kind of got an idea, got my co-founder, and then started the company.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the tolerance of risk, and also that desire to create something new
Yeah,
and start
yes,
something.
definitely about creating something new for sure. On the risk element, though, Paris, over the years, right? Like I come from a very middle class Indian family, like trying to stitch food together. When I was born, that's where my parents were, and obviously we scaled a little bit to the more of a mid class during my lifetime as a child, and I I also had this risk and all of that when growing up. But later on, what I realized is this risk is not there actually, right? Like, what is the risk? Today, imagine, I go to bed and I wake up, the company doesn't exist, right? Something happened, somebody attacked us, DDoS does, whatever happened, the company doesn't exist. What is the risk here? I can always get back into the market. I'm sure that I'll get 5 job opportunities, right? Because as a founder, the kind of skills that I am gaining is very unique, right?
Mhm.
So people talk about how you take risk and all of that, but I don't really think that there is any matter of risk. In my opinion, if somebody has spent 2 years of their time really trying to solve a problem, that person has acquired so much knowledge in that 24 months. I would hire that person in a heartbeat,
Mhm.
right? So
That's a good
so
point.
definitely creating something new. Risk tolerance, I don't even think about that. I don't think there is any
Yeah,
risk.
yeah, yeah. I guess there's a difference between the business risk, because I think any new startup business, there are quite a lot of risks that would prevent you from succeeding. But then what you're describing is a career risk, and I totally agree that the career risk is almost nil.
Yeah.
In fact, I would even say it's you could even flip that and say it's even a safer bet because the skills and experience that you acquire by trying to start up a company and build it from scratch generally are a richer set of experiences than you would have at a typical job. And the right type of employer would recognize that. And as you said, if the business failed, you might have people lining up to make you offers on any number of things. So in fact, there's really no career risk. Um, but there is a risk of a failure of the business. But then, of course, you can always just move on to the next thing. And
Exactly.
um, and I think the great part, especially what I'm seeing today, is that there's so much money ready to invest in the venture capital world that I think um, that if you have a good idea, that the financing is there too. So
Sure.
I did see that you all raised about $2 million about 1 month ago. Is that right?
Yeah, we raised last year, a second half of last year, but we announced it a month or so back.
Okay, right. Well, before we get into the raise, let's just talk about how Incent came about. Because my first question is that you jumped into the what I consider to be uber competitive, crowded space of chatbots
Sure.
at and you weren't one of the first, but you started around 2018 Incent, correct?
Yeah.
So, what was the
2019.
inspiration behind that? And you must have seen a niche, or you must have seen a particular way of approaching the chatbot solution that was different. So, can you tell me about that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. So I come from a MarTech, sales tech, data. Those are the spaces that I know a little bit about, right? And if you look at all these spaces, these are crowded spaces from the outside, especially. I have a slightly different way of thinking about crowded spaces. I think that crowded spaces are actually good. Like the so-called red ocean and blue ocean kind of things that people talk about. I think that a crowded space, if you segment in the right way, the red ocean will always have a blue ocean in pretty much everything that is out there. And in most cases, when people talk about this highly competitive landscape, what I have learned from my experience is if you build out a good thing and then do the right segmentation, there is always a space for you, right? Again, if you are asking about can this be a 500 million, like all of that, then it needs a lot more. But to get to 50, 100 million, I think it's possible, right? So anyways, on specifically on what we were, what I did. So if you look at the whole chatbot space, you will see that there are a ton of chatbots. But if you start doing some little bit of segmenting, as I was mentioning, the first segment that you would do is B2C versus B2B. What percentage of the chatbots are B2C? What percentage is B2B? A huge chunk of the chatbots that you know of will go into B2C. 75 to 80%, I would say, right? Then there's a 20 to 25% which are in B2B. I am squarely only in B2B. I don't serve any B2C companies, neither do I think about serving them anytime soon, right? For the next 5 years, I'm not going to do it. So in B2B, now you do another segmentation. How many go into the support angle? How many go into the marketing and sales angle? A lot of the B2B chatbots that you know of will go into the support angle, right? And then comes the marketing and sales. In the marketing and sales, then you do the segmentation based on the size of the companies, right? Are you serving the startups? Are you serving the SMBs, serving the mid-market, serving the enterprises, right? And in B2B marketing, it's always like there are, if you look at the marketing automation landscape, there is MailChimp at the bottom, HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, and then there is Eloqua. And then there is Klaviyo, Keep, and another 10 companies doing $100 million in revenue, right? So there is always this segmentation, and the same segmentation exists in everything you do. There is Gainsight, Totango, Churn Zero, in the customer success. So there's that segmentation. So now, long story short, the idea is if you focus on B2B, mid-market and enterprise with a good conversational solution, that space is very far from crowded. To be exact, there are 2 or 3 players in that space. When I go against people, I don't really see a lot of.
So let me just make sure I've got that. B2B mid-market for marketing and sales chatbot. That's where you play, and that's where you think you're the best.
Yes.
And there's only a few
Yes.
competitors right there in that
Yes.
space. And I have to ask you now, because I have done a little bit of research into some of your ad landing pages. You appear to be going really hard after drift.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. It is not that we are going really hard against drift. They have done a really good job in pushing this whole conversational paradigm in, right? And I have huge respect to them for doing that. In some way, they kicked off this whole marketing and sales chat and sales and marketing. So and they have spent a lot of money evangelizing this thought. So when we go and talk to customers, a lot of them already understand drift. So for them to understand Insent, the easiest way is to kind of differentiate and talk about who we are and who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's get into the marketing side of things a little bit. I'm browsing through the website right now. I think it's really clean. You basically have 3 different types of pages here. There's their product there's a product section with a lot of information about features and solutions and integrations.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have use cases. By the way, I really like that you elevated use cases to your level 1 of your site navigation, because I'm a huge proponent of giving users a mirror in which they can see themselves very easily. So you want to have your personas be able to self-identify with themselves, their problems. And I can see we've got here use cases around demand gen, ABM, marketing, sales acceleration, and customer success. And then you've got the blog, which is on a separate subdomain, and that's taking us to all of your editorial content. And I want to dive into this a little bit more too. So I'm just curious, when you were thinking about how to structure the website, what kind of considerations did you have around site structure? Because I think you made some good decisions here.
Yeah.
How did you come to that?
Yeah, a lot of the credit goes to my team. I'm in the spotlight here, but as you know, a lot of the decisions are being taken care by my marketing team.
Hmm.
So the way we think, there is an overarching structure, Paris, to be honest, right? I don't know how much you have been following this concept called buyer enablement. There is a page about buyer enablement on Gartner, which you probably might have read. I am a
Hmm.
big proponent. I'm a big believer of that philosophy. I'm not saying that it's going to be a category. I'm not trying to create a category. Maybe I will, but who knows, right? So that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is putting yourself in your buyer's shoes and then flipping your thought process from a spammy marketing to an enabling marketing is something that I strongly, strongly believe in. So if you go to our website and start interacting with our chatbot, depending on where you come from, how many times you come from, the chatbot will behave very differently, right? And if you are there for the first time, that chatbot does not even ask you for email for a long time. It does not try to book you a meeting for a long time. It'll give you a lot of content for you to read. It'll allow you to compare us against other people. So do a lot of the things, right? So that is the overarching thought. How do we enable a buyer who is landing on this website? How do we make the friction as less as possible? Just one form is just one email, right?
Hmm.
Read out, there is very little gated content there. Only the competitor content is gated. Everything else is ungated. The conversations that you are seeing on the chat will vary different based on who you are. Are you an ABM targeted account? Did our reverse IP recognize you? Are you coming for the second time? Which page you are browsing? Based on that, we have about 22 different conversations on our website,
Hmm.
differentiated ones. Yeah, does that give you a sense of that? That's where we come from, and everything that we do is around that.
Yeah. So I've got to ask the question now, since you're eating your own dog food, as they say, and I would certainly expect to see your own chatbot popping up all over the website. And I started clicking around. I see what you mean. It's very much helpful. I haven't been asked for email. I haven't been pushed into a demo. Ultimately, though, I'd like to know how many of your demo conversions are coming from your chatbot versus the classic form.
Form. Yeah. So just to be clear, we don't think it's a either or strategy. We are not a company that believes in no forms. We actually think that forms will be there and will continue to be there. I'll tell the number. So on our website, we typically receive about 40% through our chat and about 60% through the form. However, if you submit your form on our chat on our website today and click on Get Demo, the chat will immediately pop up. So our form is also integrated to the chat.
Okay.
Once you submit the form, the chat will pop up and it will say, "Hey, don't wait. Here is the account executive's calendar. Just pick a time."
Hmm.
Right. So we are actually enabling the buyers from the form to pick a demo in real
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
So about 60% of our form fills will convert into a meeting in the next couple of minutes because of the form-based acceleration that we have enabled through Insight,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, it's a combination strategy. Overarchingly across our customer base, this is what I see. I think today chat is adding 10 to 20% of leads to your funnel, right?
Hmm.
And I see that growing to 30%. But I still think that 70% of your leads will continue to come from elsewhere. It could be your gated content, it could be your form, whatever. But you can expect 15 to 30% come through chat as a channel. Again, I want to call out that it's not a chat bot. It's a chat as a channel, which is a combination of content you give. It's a combination of chat bot, which is a combination of live agents, all of that.
Hmm. Do you think that there is a certain level of fatigue, user fatigue, when it comes to chatbots? And is that a symptom of a lot of people getting it wrong and just trying to make chatbots that are too pushy and aggressive?
Yes, yes, and yes. You're right.
Okay.
You are in the space. That's why you. In fact, part of the reason.
I probably shut down a dozen to 20 chatbots a day, I think, on average. When I say shut down, I mean just because I've developed a certain blindness to it, I guess. Now, I'm not a typical user, but I'd like to hear your opinion on it too. I mean,
Sure.
how effective are they
Sure.
still when done correctly?
Yeah, no, you're right. So historically, what has happened is thinking about chat as a channel. Instead of thinking about chat as a channel, people started leveraging chat as a demand gen bot or a glorified
Mm-hmm.
form, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where I fundamentally disagree with the ideology of our competitor company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we believe that that is the wrong way to do it. And there is a favorite quote that I keep quoting, right? That when you go to and engage on some chat, there is a question that says, "May I have your email in case we get disconnected?" Now,
Mm-hmm.
tell me, how can we ever get disconnected? Like,
Yeah.
even after 110 days,
Unless I choose to leave. Yeah.
right? Even after you come back, it'll still be there. It's a cookied conversation, right?
Right.
You are essentially hoodwinking your customers to give you their email. Is that the way you want to do business? Right? Like, so I totally am against using chat as a demand gen only bot. Demand gen is a thing you can do, you should do it. In fact, Insent name actually comes from intent of the buyer and consent of the buyer. That's how the name comes from.
Okay.
So I think there is a fatigue. And the reason of that fatigue is by considering chat as a glorified form and not as an actual channel. Once you start considering chat as a channel, to of course, you can take emails, you can book meetings, but also engage with the person, give them personalized content, help them to learn more about who you are. Once you do all of these things together on chat as a channel, people will not get fatigued with it.
Mm-hmm. No, I really like how you came up with the name then. So it's intent plus consent.
Yes.
That's how you. Okay. That's excellent. Um, So I'd like to ask a little bit now just about overall your overall marketing mix, because I've taken a look. It looks like you've gotten some traction with SEO. I think you've got a little bit of growth happening there, although it's still a relatively small level. I can see some paid ads, but it looks like that's also happening at a relatively early stage.
Yes.
What are you doing to acquire new customers, and what's working?
Yeah. So a lot of our customers today are coming typically through our outbound campaigns, the cold email campaigns that we are doing, and then referral is a pretty strong traffic. I mean, not on the website. Referral is a big traffic in terms of our customers. So outbound, the usual thing, right? We use a pretty sophisticated stack between our HubSpot CRM, Outreach, Zoom Info, Lead IQ, and whatnot, right? It's a
Hmm.
triple touch campaign that we do, and we reach out to people, see if there is interest. That the usual cold outbound campaigns. Then on the referral, what is happening is we have some really good customers, and there are all these roundtables happening across US, right? There is Matt Heinz roundtable, there is Bessemer Venture Partner roundtables, HubSpot alumni roundtables. During this alumni chat is coming up very, very often, I am told. And one of our customers will be there, luckily for us, and somebody will ask a question about chat, and they'll say, "Oh, we are using Insent, and Insent is a really good platform. You should check it out." And we get a very trusted lead, and that converts into a customer in less than 30 days. Um, so yeah, that has been the two very strong elements. To your point, our marketing is starting to kick in. Our ads are starting to kick in. Our inbound is starting to kick in. Our co-marketing is starting to kick in now. We are getting some inbound, but it is in the early stages.
Hmm. And since the raise, approximately how much is earmarked for marketing versus product development or other categories?
Yeah. So our product development is based in India. Like, so the comparison, the numbers might not add up because there is a cost advantage of being in India, right? So I don't exactly know the percentage. Let's see. Let me try to. And product is so today we have pivoted the company around product and sales today, and we are changing that to marketing. So product is a very key investment from the company. So I would say that about 40% is going on product today,
Hmm.
expense, right? And the Marketing expense compared to that is actually pretty less. It's probably 12 to 15%.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask about now just pricing strategy. I can see that there is a pricing page. There's a link down in the footer to the pricing page,
Yeah.
and when I come here, I can see two plans with a growth and mid market, but I'm actually not seeing
The pricing.
prices here. It says request pricing,
Yeah.
which I guess that's going into the demo call. And I presume that's entirely intentional, most likely because you want to get people on the sales call and qualify them. Can you talk to me about that pricing strategy and the decision not to have a self-serve option with transparent pricing?
Yeah. So it is in the experimentation phase. As you see, that pricing is only in the footer, which means we are still working on the website and getting it up to the header, which will happen pretty soon. We recently did the pricing page, like 2 weeks back is when we rolled out the pricing page, and this is the first level of experiment. We will try out the other way where we put out the pricing there too at some point in time to see what is working. In terms of why are we doing the way we are doing, is because we are typically selling to the mid-market companies or enterprises, right? So we are trying to align ourselves to their buying motion as much as possible, right? And their buying motion is in most of the cases, come and get a demo and then talk about the details and then get into the pricing and those kinds of things. So we are trying to align ourselves to that motion. Why is
Gotcha.
there no self-serve model? A few reasons. First of all, again, we are selling to the mid-market companies. We want to. We do a pretty customer success heavy implementation because we believe that chat is still at the front end of adoption. If I simply give the chat platform to a marketer, then they might just configure the bot, which is not what I want them to do. So we do a pretty high touch customer success heavy conversational strategy plus implementation kind of a help in the first 60 days of our customer journey. And to do that, we have to get that self-serve will not add up very well with customer success that way, right? And yeah, so having said that, we are continuously the product-led growth and product-led movement is something that we are very, very mindful about. We want to be on that bandwagon. I think our product is very intuitive for people to figure it out. We are actively thinking about it, but given the resource constraints, we haven't moved or taken action to be a PLG company yet.
Gotcha. Yeah. Just I decided to also just check out Drift, and I can't find prices there either.
They had pricing there until recently. I think earlier until mid of last year or something like that, and then they removed the pricing because as part of going upstream, which is what they are trying to do too. Yeah, if you go to Internet Archives, I'm sure that you can find their pricing and details.
Yeah. By the way, I really love this piece of content that you have called the conversion rate calculator. This is really cool.
Right. Yeah, it's an ROI calculator thing. It's also a recent addition to the website. It's one of the usual questions that people ask. Hey, like what are we talking about here?
I've got to believe that it all comes down to ROI for your sales guys at the end of the day, which is that there's a cost to this, and there's also a cost of putting resources to this and thinking through different conversational trees and conversational paths. And in the end, you've got to convince me that X percent, you said plus 10, plus 15%, or maybe up to plus 30% conversion rate lift. And usually that is probably going to mean that this thing is going to have a massive ROI if they believe that they can achieve that. Is that a typical conversation that your sales teams are walking people through and trying to understand what is your current conversion rate? What's the value of that conversion? And what would it look like if it was 15, 20% more?
Yes, it is a typical conversion. It depends on where the customers are coming from. We have Gen 1 customers and Gen 2 customers. Gen 1 meaning chat, they are introducing chat for the first time, and Gen 2 meaning they are flipping from a competitor like a Drift or somebody else. And we have a healthy mix of these two actually in our customer base and in our pipeline conversations. So depending on where they are coming from, the questions are different. Gen 1 will have more questions about how will chat impact me as a channel? What would that ROI look like? Gen 2 folks have some level of data already because they have been running on something. They will ask, hey, how much should I think about that lift that I'm going to get with Insent, and why do you think that lift is going to happen, and all of that. So yes, we will have those conversations. And in some cases, our champions will come to us and ask, hey, do you mind putting together an ROI thing for me to present to my buying committee? And that's something we do too, right? We put together like 2 or 3 slides very quickly for them, saying that, hey, and we ask 5 questions to them based on the same thing, the ROI calculator that you're seeing on our website. Similar to that, maybe a little bit more detail, we ask those questions, we get the answers. Based on that, we will run some numbers and we will send it back to them and say, hey, based on what you told us, here is where we think you will end up. In most of the cases, we are not trying to be super bullish about it. We try to be in the average level. And so far, customers are getting the kind of value that we are predicting for them. And we don't, yeah, we don't try to always predict it. We predict it only if they ask us to.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Do the type B, the type 2 buyers who are more sophisticated, who are switching, do they also want to know if they can take their conversations from the other platform and carry them across easily? I assume that's got to be a concern.
Yes. So we do that, right? As I said, the customer success part, again, being an early stage company, we are aggressive on these kinds of things, right? So if they are leveraging an existing chat solution, then we do the full migration on our side. The thing about Insent is it is very easy for somebody to build out these conversations. Our system is, the UI UX is beautiful. I'm not saying it because it's my product. I am biased, obviously, but we have also heard it from the customers. A testimonial came out yesterday. So today, if I take a net new mid-market company, right, and I say that, you know what, I want to craft this whole experience for them, super personalized, I want to create 8 different experiences for them. If I sit down, in 60 minutes, I can craft the whole thing. 8 conversations, complete, right? Test it out, all of that. So it's that easy on Insent. So migration doesn't take a lot of time for our team. It'll typically be like an hour work.
Mm-hmm. Got it. One thing I'm looking for on the website now, which I'm not finding easily, or it might not be there, but case studies, industry case studies. Yes. Like, I don't know, what did you do for e-commerce? What did you do for a B2B lead gen marketer? Yeah. Am I just missing it, or I feel like there might be an opportunity there?
There is an opportunity there for sure. It is there, but it is part of the chat. If you keep going through the chat platforms, then it'll offer you case studies and you will be able to get some case studies from there. But there is a fair amount of low-hanging fruits that we have left, which is on 2 things that we are actively working on, is case study and review platforms.
Oh, yeah, such as G2 and Capterra. Those guys.
Yes, we have some ones going there. We recently added, I think in this week, we added 3 more reviews onto G2, but it's still early, right? We are just in the early double digits right now. So we want to obviously extend that quite a bit. So our marketing team has just actively started working on both the case studies and G2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are major channels that I think have to be up there when you talk about outbound, referral, inbound. The review sites is its own category. These are hugely important. And I've done quite a bit of, or our team has done quite a bit of research, SEO research around how often these pages are ranking. And they are extremely competitive in organic search results. So that's just, you really can't ignore those as a channel.
Exactly.
Yeah. And let's see here. I think the UI is the UI is certainly beautiful. So, what are your bigger picture goals for Insent? If you're just a couple of years into this, you've raised a little bit of money, you're chasing a massive competitor, which is Drift. What are your really most ambitious goals if you dream about what this could be in a few years? What does it look like?
Yeah. Just to be clear, right? So for us to win, we don't have to kill Drift, right? Drift didn't kill Intercom when they won. So 2010, Intercom started. Intercom is still a pretty sizable company, like $100 million in revenue, right? Drift is still below that, I believe. But I think that Drift has been able to grow pretty fast without killing Intercom, right? Intercom crafted their own space, and then Drift crafted their own space. They overlap in some cases, but not much. So yeah, that's the point. I don't believe we will compete with Drift, right? They are a formidable competitor. I like them. They have the marketing superpower. If you take the top few companies in the world, Drift is definitely one of them. So respect to where it is due, and then I will compete with them. But in terms of where I am looking to take the company, I think as we evolve more and more, I think we will divulge from Drift a little bit more. I don't want to talk more a lot about it. We have the way we think about building a company is about solving what are those super difficult overarching problems that we can solve, right? That's how we think about companies. And every year I will take like 2 or 3 super difficult problems to solve, right? As a company and as a product. And we have 2 problems that we have taken for this year in 2021. And by Q3 of this year, we will be adding those abilities to Insent, which will drive us pretty more and more away from Drift. I think we'll still compete, but we'll do more and more out from Drift. Yeah, and where this is going, Paris, we are still at the super front end of this whole adoption, right? Like in 20 years, the forms have been there, and the forms will continue to exist for another 20 years. But chat will be a table stakes for every single company, right? We are talking B2B, so let's say B2B. For every single B2B company, chat will be a table stakes. So if you take it that angle, right? If I put some numbers, in US, I think about the number of companies above 250 employees is about 55,000 to 60,000 in the B2B domain, right? Just in US. And then there is additional 75,000 across the world, about 250 employees. For somebody to use Insent, you don't even need to be above 250. If you're above 100, around that 100 mark, you're good, right? So the number of companies that we have to target, and Drift has to target, and Intercom has to target, it's just mind blowing, right? If you are talking about like a $50,000 ACV and you have 2,000 customers, you are at $100 million in revenue, right? You don't have to kill anybody to get there. You can compete healthy, and then you can get there.
Yeah.
So North Star of the company is to get to $100 million in revenue, and along with that, solve some really amazing problems for B2B marketers, so that we want to help the B2B marketers to adapt to the real-time paradigm. We believe that Marketo and HubSpots of the world are more meant for batch, like emails, non-real-time kind of engagement. The system was not built for real-time, will not act in real-time, is not meant for real-time. We believe that B2B marketers will want to be a lot more real-time, not only in chat, but also in other things. So we want to, that is the quest. If we enable B2B marketers to act in real time, then we'll be a big company.
Now I think you slightly blew my mind with some of these numbers. The total addressable market here is well over 100,000 companies
Easily
around the world that have 100, 150 plus employees. That's roughly how you describe it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or you said 250, but you can go a little lower. How much of that total addressable audience is penetrated by the entire industry, and how much is still out there to be gotten?
Huge chunk is not penetrated yet. Outside US, the penetration is even lesser. I'd say very, very less actually. Yeah. So what I have understood is US penetration, especially in SMB, is pretty good. Pretty good in the sense that it's probably 50%.
50%. SMBs that are below 100 employees.
Yeah, let's say 150, less than 200. Let's just say.
Okay.
All of these numbers I'm making it up, right? I don't have. This is based on what I have seen in the market. So this is just a conversation between you and me. Don't quote me on this. I'm sure everybody will.
I won't quote you, but we are recording it.
I know. This is just for directionally accurate data, right? That's what we are talking about. But if you go upstream, like to mid-market and enterprise, the penetration goes way less than that. If you go to top few enterprises and see what percentage of those guys are using chat for marketing, it's very, very limited. There are small pieces of these enterprises using it, but not really across the company and all. Outside US, the penetration is much lesser. So in terms of the total addressable market, it is pretty high. And yeah, there are, like I said, right, the B2B marketing automation, the simple automation paradigm has about 10 or more players running more than $100 million in revenue, right? And here also there is an opportunity for multiple companies to drive a lot of revenue.
Yeah. I'm curious as to how many companies are using some form of an marketing automation platform, but not using any type of chat solution.
That is also pretty high. In my experience, once the company crosses like 70, 80, 100 or something like that, they are getting to a point where they are using some form of an automation. And in most cases, it'll be HubSpot. When they cross 250 employees or so, they upgrade to a Pardot or a Marketo. And then when they are in the real enterprise zone, they go into Eloqua, right? That's what I have seen. So all the TAM that we were mentioning about the 100 plus, a lot of those folks are on a marketing automation. If you put about 250, they are definitely using a marketing automation.
Have you thought about a positioning or a communications approach to go after those companies that are, well, let's say large SMBs, so between maybe 100 to 300 employees, who you have some pretty high confidence that they're on HubSpot, possibly Marketo, but they're on marketing automation and they're not using any form of chat, and to tell them that this is your logical next step?
Yes, yeah, we do that, Paris. Obviously, we do technographic based targeting, right? Like when we go outbound, we go to built widths of the world.
Built with,
built widths and mix ranks of the world. We figure out which company is using what, and then we target them based on that. So yes, we do that, and that's part of how we get people into the pipeline. We do that. I think there is a little bit more we have to do in terms of further segmenting them, right? Like for example, imagine a company using Marketo and they are using a 6sense or a Terminus today, right? And we get that data from BuiltWith as well. Now the point is they are using Marketo, they're not using a chat, but they are using a 6sense or a Terminus, which means they have an ABM motion as well happening, right? They have invested on these tools. Now you can craft a message saying that, hey, there is our platform, Insent is an ABM platform. It's an ABM chat as well. So you can say that, hey, all these amazing leads you are driving through a Terminus ad is coming to your website. We will help you to convert them. We will close the loop, right, in some way. So we can go further, which we are doing limited today. That's where we are in this quarter. We are trying to focus on further honing in on some of these messaging elements.
Excellent. Wow, there's so many great opportunities ahead of you, Arjun. This is exciting.
Yeah.
Well, hey, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you feel would be valuable for our audience to know?
No, this was actually a pretty good chat. People like usually we only talk about these higher level stuff, right? Like, GAN kind of thing where we talk about how, so this was much more tactical. You actually went to the website and asked me a bunch of questions. So I really liked the interaction. I should say that first. Is there anything that we haven't touched upon? I cannot think of anything, Paris. I think this was a pretty good conversation. The only other thing that probably comes to mind is like we haven't talked anything about visitor intelligence based marketing, right? Like when somebody is on the website, part of how you can give a good experience to the person is by identification, right? The way I think about a buyer enablement stack is like there is an identification layer, then there is where exactly they are in the buyer journey, like realizing that, understanding that as the second layer. And then there is a content and conversation layer on top, right? A 3-layer stack. Not saying go buy new tools to fill this stack. I'm just saying that this is the conceptual stack, right? So the first one includes the identification layer, includes cookie level identification using your marketing automation and a reverse IP resolution. And then the understanding buyer journey includes integration into your marketing automation, into your CRM, into your existing campaigns, and then figuring that out. And then the content and conversation is about crafting personalized experience based on the other two, right? So this is something that I've been evangelizing a little bit. When I present it in such a simple way to our customers, they typically they are like, okay, we get it, and some percentage of the customers are obviously using a reverse IP resolution and those kinds of things. At Insent, we actually do the whole thing, right? We don't do the content part. We partner with companies like a Path Factory, for example, to do the content experiences. But cookie and that thing we do at Insent, understanding the buyer journey we do at Insent, and conversation we do at Insent. So this is just I wish or I hope that this is helpful for your audience, basically.
That is very interesting. Yeah, okay, there's putting that conversation in the right context is key, and I suppose not only IP lookup can probably tell you the name of the company. You can have data coming from marketing automation and CRM that tells you their latest interaction and maybe predicts where they dropped off and where they should be brought back in. Let's say whether it's a piece of content or a certain flow. This is definitely the future. I interviewed a few days ago the CEO of Intellimize, which is a machine learning driven CRO platform. So they're really taking the whole concept of A/B testing to, let's say, to not just the future, but to today, because it's so much is driven by machine learning today. And they're saying, why just do a simple A/B test when you can actually just feed all these signals to a machine learning model and have them predict what is the best headline in this moment, what is the best headline to show to this individual user, or what's the best image to show. And that chat experience is it's part of that. It has to all be complementary.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, in fact, we also have an automated A/B testing on our chat, right? Because who knows what chat conversations would work with who. So we have an automated multivariant testing built into the system. You can give like 4 variants, and the system would automatically figure out which is working based on a statistically viable sample. The idea that you just meant. What was the company name again?
Intellimize. So think about just like you're putting together the words of intent plus consent. Yeah. They're putting together intelligent, optimize. So think intelligence and optimize is Intellimize. I think it's .ai maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I got that personalization.
Did you find it? Yeah, you should check this out. I think it's this is another future superstar SaaS company in the works.
Yeah, I like when you said another superstar. I really like that.
Yeah. Well, clearly you're on your way. I mean, no doubt about that. So check them out. And the episode with Chris, he's their VP of marketing, is probably coming out in a few days.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got one more question for you, Arjun, and anybody who's going to check you out on LinkedIn is probably going to be one thing that jumped out at me is that you're probably a few days away from breaking 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. So how the hell did you do that?
I am not one of those planned social network builder, right? I have no idea. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it just happened. So when I was growing up, I was part of IEEE, which is the world's largest engineers organization. So I used to be a super active volunteer, being part of their lot of global boards and stuffs. So I used to do a lot of sessions, speaking opportunities, and those kinds of things. And that helped me to build out an early base of engineers and smart people in my network. And then from then, my first company that scaled, and my first company became the first ever product exit in the history of my state in India, ever.
Wow.
Right. So, and that also shows, the maturity is not that high, right? It's like if you take a Bay Area or a Seattle, it happens all the time. But my state is still in the early stages of product related growth. So that obviously would push a lot of people, right? And it made a big news in the state, and we were covered in 23 media outlets and whatnot. So that pushed a lot of people to my network. And then at Insent, it is happening. People are following. I try to write things which are helpful for them and not annoy them. And people tend to send requests, and I tend to accept them.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Do you ever imagine that you'll go back to your home state in India and do some mentoring and try to inspire a generation of entrepreneurs with your story?
I'm very well connected to my state. I go at least twice a year. I know that you also do this cross-border interaction to your hometown in Bulgaria. So I am a big believer. I think I do invest in companies coming from my state, also elsewhere in India. I try to spend at least 30 to 45 minutes every weekend with at least one company from the state, whoever reaches to me. Not only the state, but anywhere. If somebody reaches out, I always find 45 minutes a weekend to speak to a new company. And yeah, it's an active effort from my side to see how best I can help the ecosystem back in my home state.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure that's very rewarding.
It is.
And excellent. Well, Arjun, I think we're pushing almost 50 minutes here, and probably it's time to let you go and get back to business. So I really do appreciate the time you spent, and I hope our paths will cross again. I think you've given our listeners some amazing insights. And Insent I can't wait to see what happens next with Insent. I'll be watching closely.
Sure. Yeah, no, it was great. I really enjoyed the conversation, Paris. Thanks for all those amazing prompting questions or non-prompting questions that helped me to open up as much as I did.
I'm trying to get better at this podcast interviewing thing. It's I really enjoy it, and it was very easy to have this conversation with you. I think it flowed very, very naturally. So thanks
Absolutely.
a lot,
Doing great.
And have a great day out there in Seattle.
You too. Thanks, Paris.
Okay.
Bye.
Cheers. Another great episode in the books. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get notified when future episodes drop, be sure to subscribe to Paris Talks Marketing on your favorite podcast player. And to learn more about our growth marketing agency, visit hop.online. That's hop, HOP.online. Have a great day.